I came back home for Christmas after my medical deployment and gently asked my daughter, "Was the $1,400 I sent each month enough?" She looked puzzled. "What money?" My parents turned pale, and my sister quickly steered the conversation elsewhere. I didn't raise my voice. I just waited. 3 days later, there was a knock at the door. The turkey came out dry, like it always did. I kept quiet. 6 months away on deployment, and this was the welcome I received. Tepid stuffing, jelly-like cranberry slices under fluorescent lights, and that same tense silence I'd known all my life, dressed up as family tradition. My daughter sat directly across from me at the table. She was 18, in her first year of med school. She had the same tired eyes I once had, the same posture too, back straight like she was trying to stay awake or hold herself together, maybe both. She looked good though, worn down but in a good way, the kind of tired that says you're doing something difficult and refusing to quit. At some point, I repeated the question, "Was the $2,400 I sent each month enough?" She blinked. "What money?" "The money I sent while I was gone." She tilted her head just a bit. "What money?" "The $2,400. I sent it to you every month." Her fork paused, then slipped from her hand, not in any dramatic fashion, but just enough to make a sound on the plate. Across the table, my mom flinched like someone had flipped on a harsh light. My dad shifted in his chair. My sister suddenly found her wine glass deeply interesting. "You sent that to me?" my daughter asked. I nodded. "Of course. For rent, textbooks, food. I wanted you to concentrate on your studies." "I thought you couldn't afford that," she murmured, then even softer. "Grandma said—" "Oh," my sister interrupted, overly bright. "Is that the pecan pie? I thought we weren't having dessert tonight." I didn't break eye contact. "What did Grandma say?" My daughter glanced around the table. "She said you were under a lot of stress, that you wanted to help but couldn't, that I shouldn't bring it up because it might upset you." The silence that followed wasn't loud or theatrical, just heavy. My mom dabbed the corner of her lips like she was playing a part. My dad poured more gravy like the room wasn't smoldering. My sister cleared her throat and muttered something about coffee, but didn't move. "Wait," my daughter said. "You actually sent it?" "Yes." "To where?" "The usual account, Grandpa's." She turned toward them, not accusingly, just confused. "You told me she couldn't help," she said. My mom stood abruptly. "Well, this has turned unpleasant. I think I'll put the kettle on." "You let me believe she didn't care," my daughter said. She wasn't shouting. She was realizing. "She's being dramatic," my sister muttered. "She's exhausted," I replied. "She's 18, my sister snapped. "Not everything is about her." She got through her first semester of med school thinking I had abandoned her. No one said a word. My mom suddenly found something to tidy. Herself with the teacups. My dad finally looked up. My sister poured another glass. My daughter sat still, not angry, not crying, just stunned like someone had pulled a rug. She didn't even know she was standing on. She looked at me. I looked back, and in that second I knew she finally saw it. My dad cleared his throat. "Maybe we should all just take a breath." My mom straightened the salt shaker like that would fix it. "You said she couldn't afford to help," my daughter said again. "You said she didn't care. She didn't." My sister said she's just rewriting the story now to make herself the hero. "I worked double shifts." My daughter said, her voice cracked. "I didn't sleep." "Oh, for God's sake," my mom muttered. "You survived. Stop acting like it's a tragedy." She made it through her first semester thinking I abandoned her. I said no one had anything to say to that. I stood up, so did my daughter. "I'm coming," she said. I didn't argue. I didn't look at any of them. I just walked to the door. He followed. We didn't speak in the car. Not until we were a few blocks away and my hands stopped shaking. He was staring out the window, jaw tight. I wanted to say something, anything. But I knew better. I've been her sitting beside someone who meant well. Try not to fall apart because if you do, you might never come back together. I pulled into the first gas station, still open, parked under a flickering light. "Was it really?" "Every month?" she asked. Her voice was low, almost careful. "Yes," I said. 400 for you? 400 for their house. I sent it on the first every month, like clockwork through Grandpa's account because of the exchange rate. She nodded. Once stared out the windshield, her eyes didn't blink. I watched her trying to figure out what kind of pain was in her silence. Anger, grief. Some blend of all three. "You thought I didn't want to help?" I said quietly. She didn't answer. I almost reached for her hand, but stopped. She wasn't ready for comfort, not that kind. Instead, I sat there and let the truth settle around us. I thought I didn't matter, she whispered. Like maybe you were finally free and didn't want to come back. I closed my eyes. No, I said. Never. We sat there a while longer. Two people frozen in a gas station parking lot trying to thaw 10 layers of betrayal. We drove to a small hotel on the edge of town. Everything else was closed. Christmas, after all, the night clerk didn't ask questions. I gave him my card and didn't flinch at the price. The room was clean, quiet, dim, yellow light. 2 beds. 2 chairs, 1 coffee maker. That probably hadn't worked since the Bush administration. My daughter took off her shoes and sat on the edge of the bed. I couldn't afford groceries, she said. Sometimes I skipped lectures just to pick up extra hours, and every time I thought about asking you, I'd hear Grandma's voice in my head. She's doing her best. Don't be a burden. I sat down beside her, closed, but not touching. She made you feel like asking for help was a crime, I said. She nodded. So I just stopped asking. I swallowed hard. I know what that feels like after my daughter went to sleep. I opened my laptop, pulled up the banking portal. First thing I did, canceled the $400 I'd been sending my parents every month gone, and then I just sat there staring. They stole this from her. What else did they take? My chest tightened. The house. My house. The one my sister Tara had pleaded to stay in while I was away. She said rent was outrageous. Said they'd look after it, cover the mortgage, maintain the place, so I wouldn't have to stress. That was the agreement. The only reason I didn't put it on the market. I could have had actual tenants, brought in income, but no, I handed Tara the keys and told myself it was okay. It's family, right? I logged into the mortgage portal and stared at the screen. Nothing. No payments. Not a single one in months. I froze. My brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe the site was buggy. Maybe the records hadn't refreshed yet. Maybe. But no, it was all there. Clearly listed, month after month, no payment received. I sat motionless, laptop on my knees, doing everything I could not to be sick. If she hadn't paid it, did I just lose my home? 3 days from now, I'll be standing at my sister's door, and nothing about our lives will ever be the same. But let's back up. At 5 years old, I couldn't tell you how many moms I'd had. The one with the chipped bunny mug. The one who smoked menthols. The one who kept the fridge locked. I don't remember their names, just the smells, the ceilings, the different words they use for dinner. One woman once told me I couldn't go to the doctor, said there weren't enough doctors for things like that. I think that's when it started. The needing. The belief that maybe, just maybe, I could grow up to be the kind of person I always needed. And that feeling never left me. When I was 5.5, my parents adopted me. Years of fertility tests and just relax and it'll happen had led them to the decision to take in a child who needed a home. Their words, not mine. Not. That first year felt like something from a Hallmark movie. Brand new toys, warm dinners, pajamas that matched. I was their mission. They were determined to do it right. I learned to say thank you without needing a prompt. Learned not to cry when fear hit. Learned how to fit in. They really were trying, genuinely. I still call those my happy years, though yes, I carry guilt even for thinking of them that way. Then came the miracle. When I was 10, my mom got pregnant, naturally, after being told it was a 1 in 1,000 shot. She radiated joy. They both cried. The neighbors brought casseroles. And after the baby arrived, the world shifted. I turned into the extra, the preview, the understudy lingering behind the curtain. It wasn't intentional, at least that's what everyone says. But when the baby smiled, they applauded. When I brought home an A, they offered a nod. She cried. They came running. I cried, and they asked if I was being overdramatic. Then came the whispers, the phrase I'd hear over and over. You should be grateful we rescued you from the system. Later it became, you should be grateful we did all this for you. And I was grateful I tried to prove it with grades, with chores, with silence. My sister didn't have to prove anything, he just had to exist. She had music lessons and birthday parties, and the kind of bedroom you only see in catalogs. I had poster putty and secondhand clothes when she broke a plate. It was a learning moment. When I did it was a character flaw, but I loved her. Of course I did. She was my little sister. She had no idea when it came time for college. I didn't ask for help. Never occurred to me. Asking felt greedy. I thought I should be able to do it on my own. I told myself it would be romantic, grinding through 12-hour shifts and late-night study sessions. I thought I'd be some kind of self-made legend in reality. I was bone-deep, exhausted. I once fell asleep waiting for a bus and woke up to a stranger poking me with a pen, so I made it just barely. Once I got my degree and started working, I felt like I owed them, after all they'd saved me, so I paid for things. Groceries, bills, vacation, help here and there. When my sister went to college, I covered a chunk of her tuition. It was unspoken, expected. That's how our family worked. My success was their deposit slip, even when I got married and moved abroad. The money kept flowing. My dad had set up an account, optimized for international transfers, better rates, fewer fees, so I used it every month like clockwork. My husband stayed abroad after we separated. I didn't. I came home with my daughter. She was one fierce, loud, bright. I didn't have a lot, but I had her. And I swore she'd never feel like an afterthought. When she turned 18, she told me she wanted to study medicine. I said yes, before she finished the sentence. But college is expensive, rent books, food, lap fees, and I knew my job wouldn't stretch far enough, so I signed up for deployment. It wasn't easy leaving her, but the pay was better, and she was already moving into a dorm. I told her I'd send money every month, $11. $400 for her expenses plus $400 for my parents to help with their mortgage. Same setup, same account, Grandpa's. And for a while I thought it was working. We spoke on Zoom, sometimes, not often. She always looked tired, distracted. I figured she was adjusting to student life. She never brought up money. I assumed that meant she was okay. I thought I was holding everything together until Christmas, until that dry turkey. And that one awful question was the $400 enough? And my daughter said, "What $1? $400?" That night, I opened the mortgage account again, this time really looking no payments in months. For a second, I panicked. Was I about to lose the house? Had they let it slide into foreclosure? Then I saw it temporary hardship. Pause. Approved. Filed under my name. No foreclosure, just a pause. I exhaled briefly. The house was safe, but someone had impersonated me, filed paperwork, claimed hardship, faked my identity. There was only one person who could have done that. 3 days later. There was a knock at my sister's door, but first I made a call. I called my friend Ethan. Ethan had been a broke law student when I was already working her shifts and quietly paying his overdue dentist bills. He's a lawyer now with a sharp mind and a better memory than he lets on. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, stranger," he said. "Still off saving the world, one shift at a time." "Yeah," I said, and apparently funding fraud from the sidelines that got his attention. 30 minutes later, we were sitting across from each other at a nearly empty diner, Ethan in a hoodie and coat that didn't match me, and jeans, and the same jacket I'd been wearing since the airport. I didn't even bother with coffee. I slid my laptop across the table and opened the folder. Bank records, transfer logs, screenshot of the mortgage pause. He scrolled, then scrolled again, then exhaled. "She impersonated you, looks that way, and this account. Your parents knew, the $1. $400 was for your daughter. Yes, every month, like clockwork." He clicked through the messages I'd forwarded. My mom thanking me for taking care of the kid, my dad confirming when the next deposit would arrive, my sister. Well, she didn't thank anyone, but she sure as hell cashed it, and the house. Ethan asked. "I have a written agreement," I said. "My sister promised to cover the mortgage while she lived there. Did she sign it?" She typed her name. I said, "Electronic agreement." I needed something on record for the bank since I was going abroad. They wanted proof it wouldn't sit empty. Ethan nodded slowly and, "You have the messages showing that the $1,400 was for your daughter. Yes, you realize this is solid, not just civil. This could be criminal." I stared at him. "Will I win? You want them prosecuted or broke? I want them to stop pretending I owe them everything." He looked at me, then really looked and said, "I think it's time to go knock on some doors." We drove to my house the next morning. Felt strange saying that my house, after all these months, I hadn't seen it in over 6 months. I'd been planning to rent it out, maybe even sell it. But my sister had called crying about how hard it was to find a decent place. So I'd offered her mine, a roof over her head, in exchange for covering the mortgage, just like any tenant would. Except now she wasn't a tenant, she was a squatter with a credit card. History of theft. Ethan stepped out of the car with a manila envelope, professional. Like this was a Tuesday, I knocked on the door. It opened halfway. My sister blinked at me, then laughed. Well, well, look who finally came home. I brought you something, I said. She took the envelope, opened it. Eviction notice. She read, Oh, honey, that's cute. Ethan smiled legally. Binding effective in 30 days. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, don't worry. I'm moving out anyway. Already bought my own place. I stared at her. You what? He shrugged. It's done. Keys are in hand, thought. I'd treat myself. For Christmas, that was when I noticed the boxes behind her, taped shut, labeled half the house already packed. She wasn't bluffing, and then I saw them. My parents in the kitchen wrapping dishes, helping what's going on? I asked. You're all here, we're helping her move. My mom said like it was perfectly normal. I'm sorry. How did she buy a house? With money, my sister said. You remember what that is, right? I stepped inside boxes. Tupperware framed pictures. Where did the deposit come from? I asked. My sister grinned from not wasting cash on rent. Ethan raised an eyebrow. She means the mortgage she was supposed to pay Tomato. Tomato, she said. I turned to my parents, and you're fine with this. My dad crossed his arms. She needed a home. You weren't using it. I wasn't using it because I was working myself to the bone overseas. I snapped to support my daughter. And you? Oh, please, my mom said. You act like we forced you. You took the money meant for her. We needed it more. My sister said flatly, Your daughter was fine. She was working 2 jobs, living on cereal. She thought I abandoned her. She didn't die, my mom said. Stop being dramatic. Ethan took a step forward. We'll be in touch. You'll be hearing from us again this time about the mortgage, the theft, and the impersonation. My sister rolled her eyes. Go ahead. I've moved on. I looked at her. You stole from my daughter? Lied to me, impersonated me to a bank. You think this ends because you taped some boxes? She smiled. You're just jealous. I'm better at life than you. That was when I stopped talking. Ethan handed her the second envelope. It was thicker. What's this, a formal demand? He said. Repayment of mortgage value for 6 months, restitution of stolen funds, $1,168. To be precise, and damages, she laughed. Damages you. Impersonated her to pause the loan, he said. My sister shrugged. You should be grateful. I have paused the payments for you, so it didn't go into foreclosure. You act like I trashed the place. My mom folded her arms. She's your sister. I turned to her. You told my daughter I didn't care about her. She was being dramatic. She skipped meals. She was 18. She should grow up. I looked around. The room at the woman packing china she didn't own. The man polishing silverware. He never paid for the sister who'd stolen a future and called it moving on. And then I said, I'll see you in court. That night, I went to see my daughter. She opened the door, looking tired, but calm. She had a paper in one hand and a pencil behind her ear. I'm sorry I didn't call earlier, I said. She stepped aside. I figured you were busy suing people. We sat on her bed side by side. I confronted them. I said they didn't deny it. She nodded. I figured I also found out they've been using your money to help her buy a house. Her face barely moved, just a slow, sinking kind of stillness. Okay, she said. That's not okay. I mean, it makes sense to them. I was always optional, not to me. I know, she said quietly. I looked around her tiny room, notes on the wall, food wrappers, a second-hand kettle with no lid. You won't have to work 2 jobs anymore, I said. I'll make sure of it, she nodded. Do you hate them? I asked. I don't think about them, she said. I don't have space. I reached for her hand. This time she let me, and we sat there in silence, but this time it felt like healing. They said it wasn't theft that was their opening line in court. Their lawyer, some stiff, in an ill-fitting suit, stood up, looked the judge dead in the eye, and said, "Your Honor, the money was a gift." I nearly laughed, not because it was funny, because it was so deeply insultingly stupid, that if I didn't laugh, I'd scream, $1,400, he said, per month transferred through the grandfather's account. No formal conditions that fits the legal definition of a voluntary gift. He actually looked proud of that logic. My lawyer stood up, calm as ever. We have text messages where the plaintiff clearly states the money is for her daughter's living expenses and tuition. The judge nodded. "Let's see them." We handed over the screenshots, the ones where I'd said, "Just send her college money for November. Same amount as last month, and please make sure it goes to her, and if I miss the first buy a day, just transfer it anyway, please." The opposing lawyer glanced at the text and pivoted like a gymnast. Well, he said, that may be the plaintiff's intention, but there's no evidence the recipients agreed to those terms and no legal contract was in place. I swear if our roles were admissible, we'd have one right there. Then came the real circus. They brought my dad up to testify. He walked like he was going to a church pulpit, raised his right hand, swore to tell the truth. "My daughter is a doctor," he began. "And she's done very well for herself when she started sending money. We thought it was her way of showing gratitude. We raised her after all. We saved her from the system. We didn't ask her to send that money. She did it freely." He actually looked misty-eyed when he said it. Then my sister took the stand, and if my dad was a sermon, she was a full-blown one-woman. Play, she flipped her hair. Bit her lip. Spoke softly. "I was going through such a hard time," she said. "My boyfriend and I were barely scraping by when she offered the house. I was so grateful, I said I'd do my best to cover the mortgage, but it was never like legally binding." My lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Did you or did you not sign an agreement stating you would pay the mortgage in exchange for living in her home?" She looked at her shoes. "I mean, yeah, but that was just like an informal thing, sisters help each other." Then came the kicker. They submitted the hardship, pause as my idea. Their lawyer said, "I'd called my sister, panicked about losing the house, and asked her to file the pause on my behalf. She was overseas. He said it was easier for her sister to handle domestic paperwork." I almost choked. My lawyer stood. "Your Honor, that contradicts the signed mortgage agreement, and we have a recording captured legally of the defendant admitting she impersonated the plaintiff to the bank." The judge's head snapped up. "Play it," so we did. It was from my phone audio. I'd recorded the night we handed her the notice right after she laughed and said she'd already bought a new place. I'd started recording just before knocking on her door, and now that audio echoed through the courtroom on full volume. Ethan's voice rang out. "You impersonated her to pause the loan." Then my sister's voice followed, cheerful, smug. "You should be grateful I paused the payments for you so it wouldn't go into foreclosure. You act like I wrecked the place." The room went still. Her attorney slowly set down his pen. The judge leaned back in her chair and said, "Well, that's enlightening." From that point on, their defense crumbled like a deflating party balloon. The ruling came down in our favor. Full repayment, damages, legal fees. But of course, there was a twist. My sister didn't have the money. She had spent it, all of it, on the down payment for the house she had just purchased, a house she now legally owned but couldn't actually afford. She pleaded for a payment plan, cried in the hallway, said she'd go bankrupt, claimed it wasn't fair. The judge didn't flinch. 2 weeks later, after missing the court-ordered deadline to pay damages, the judge authorized a property transfer. The house she'd bought, the one she flaunted, was now mine. Her share of the equity lined up almost exactly with what she owed. It didn't happen overnight, but when it did, it felt right. And just like that, the house she'd acquired with stolen funds became mine. The following day, I contacted my rental agent. 2 properties, 2 tenants, 2 steady income streams. Then I called my daughter. She didn't say, "I told you so." She simply said, "So we won." I replied, "We did." She told me, "I quit my second job." I smiled. "Good, you deserve sleep again." She hesitated. "Would you mind if I kept the barista job, just like once a week? I kind of enjoy it." "Of course," I said, "whatever brings you peace." I returned to deployment for another 6 months, not because I had no choice, but because I wanted a cushion. A bit of financial breathing room before I came home for good. Everything had changed. The rental income went straight to her, covering her housing, groceries, and textbooks. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't merely scraping by, and neither was I. We video called every Sunday. She'd show me her class notes, her stethoscope, her dorm, clean, calm, and fully hers. Sometimes she'd say, "It's strange how much easier school feels now." And I'd nod because I got it. When you've been drowning for years, simply breathing feels extravagant. 6 months later, I flew home. We embraced in the airport parking lot. No speeches, no tears, just warmth. There was a spark in her again. Her eyes had life. We found a cozy apartment near her campus. I didn't move in with her, God forbid, but we had dinner weekly, sometimes more. We talked about the future, her goals, medical school, what she might specialize in. We even talked about family, or the absence of it. "I blocked Grandma," she said one night while stirring pasta, "and Grandpa, and Aunt Tara." "Good," I told her. "I don't feel guilty." "You shouldn't." We tapped forks like they were champagne glasses. The house they tried to steal, now it was paying for her dreams. As for me, I don't miss them. Not their birthdays, not their guilt trips, not their silence. Either way, breathing becomes easier afterward. And for the first time in years, I can breathe fully. So, did I go too far? Or not nearly far enough? Some people say family is everything. But what is family, really, if it turns its back on your child? I'd truly love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you won't miss what comes next. Let me know if you'd like this version further refined or stylized for narration or video script use.